In a world verge of chaos, a young boy's extraordinary routine was just the beginning. Every morning at 7 a.m., he embarked on a grueling 10 km run. By noon, he honed his sword fighting skills against a dummy, delivering a relentless barrage of 500 head strikes. As evening fell at 5 p.m., he shifted to weightlifting, performing the Big 3 exercises. This relentless cycle continued for 14 days straight. Someone intrigued by his unwavering discipline asked, "Why are you doing this with a crooked smile?" The boy responded, "Did I suddenly go crazy? Maybe it would have been better if I had. But there's a reason for my madness." Just then, a status window showed up, bearing a dire message: "The door to the end of days is opening soon. Please prepare for the end. Recommended quests, strength exercises, cardio exercises, learning kendo." As the countdown ticked away, anxiety gripped the air. The world was about to end. At the precise moment the timer hit 0, the scene shifted to 15 days earlier. It was a normal day when a critical disaster alert blared on everyone's phones. Today at 1832, monsters appeared near Wang Mountain. Citizens in the area are instructed to evacuate immediately. More alerts followed at different locations. Panic ensued as live video feeds showed terrifying creatures wreaking havoc. One particular broadcast captured the attention of millions. A vlogger was live streaming near a monster when it suddenly appeared behind him. He joked, "Since I came all the way here, should I go a little closer?" His viewers frantically typed warnings behind you, but thinking it was a prank, laughed it off. In an instant, the monster attacked, and his screen went dark. Then we meet our protagonist Lee Ho-young, who is 29 years old, but looks like 16, maybe due to Korean skincare. Watches this unfold and gets shocked in daylight. He states, "Damn, that surprised me. Why does that video look so realistic? And why do we keep getting these disaster alert text messages today? What on earth is happening?" Reflecting on the struggle to make ends meet, he mused, "And now there's talk of monsters. Who would believe such a thing yet?" A nagging doubt lingered. Suddenly, he spotted a monster whose leg is stuck on a trap. Frightenedly, he thinks, "What's that monster doing here? That's kind of scary, so let's run for now." He remembered, "Oh right, this is the day the math teacher will be here," but the monster's pitiful cries stopped him in his tracks. It seemed to be asking for help. Despite its pleading eyes, he thought, "Even if it's trying to act cute, it's still too scary. I'm human, and that's a monster. I'm not nice enough to show compassion to a monster." The creature, as if sensing his hesitation, showed him a photo of its family. Ho-young can't ignore the power of family, so he helps her escape. While leaving, Globin gave him something. Then a status panel appeared displaying the words "Silver Goblin's Pill. Once consumed, you will obtain something." Is this some kind of hologram? Consume it? Who would eat something so suspicious? He wondered aloud. Suddenly, a news broadcast interrupted his thoughts. Right now, large buildings have appeared all over the world. These buildings resemble towers, and we have lost contact with the U.S. Army that entered the tower. Panic surged through him as he saw the monsters and the mysterious towers. Has the apocalypse really started? He asked himself. Just then, a tower emerged near his house in Korea. The same message appeared on his screen: "Silver Goblin's Pill. Once consumed, you will obtain something." Doubtful yet desperate, the protagonist looked at the pill. "I don't know if this is the right decision," but despite his hesitations, he swallowed the pill. Instantly, a status panel announced, "You have obtained Sage Status Window, which will provide the guide with the highest rate of survival in your current situation." A mysterious book materializes in Ho-young's hand. The panel reads, "The door to the end of days is opening soon. Time left until the end of days: 15 days, 4 hours, 12 minutes, 52 seconds. Please prepare for the end. Recommended quests, strength exercises, cardio exercises, learning kendo." Determined to survive, the Ho-young commits to the guide's recommendations, dedicating himself to rigorous exercise for 15 days, abandoning all other pursuits. Despite his relentless efforts, the fateful moment arrives, and the door to the end opens. As he grips his sword, the game begins. A panel signals the start of the tutorial, announcing that the aptitude test is complete. Suddenly, a new window appears. "The Sage Status Window will provide the guide with the highest rate of survival. Use all 60 minutes and kill as many monsters as possible." Realizing he can leverage the Sage Status Window in the game, the Ho-young reflects on how the guide's advice had prepared him for this moment. He decides to hunt monsters instead of fleeing the forest. With determination, he embarks on the hunt, conserving his MP. Upon reaching level 2, he receives a message about HP and MP recovery and earning points for stat increases. Grateful for the timely recovery, he readies himself for further challenges. However, another message reveals a drawback of the Sage status window's slower leveling compared to other players. Initially dismayed by the perceived penalty, he soon realizes his points remain intact. He contemplates his options, enhancing strength for powerful attacks or agility for speed and reflexes, but at this moment, he needs sensitivity. After defeating a horned raccoon, he notes that it wasn't as strong as expected for a tutorial monster, easily overcome even with default stats. The panel instructs him to use the entire 60-minute tutorial to eliminate as many monsters as possible. The challenge now lies in finding more raccoons. Suddenly, he encounters a formidable monster. What kind of monster is this, he wonders as it attacks swiftly. Comparing it to a rhinoceros-like creature, he identifies it as the boss. Despite its speed and strength, the protagonist remains composed, recognizing that while it differs from other one-horned raccoons, it is still manageable. With determination, he engages in battle, ultimately defeating the one-horned raccoon alpha and clearing the hidden quest. As a reward, he receives gold. Reflecting on his journey, he notices 11 women who seem to have also completed the tutorial and been sent there. Panic spreads among them, understandable given the sudden and drastic changes. The protagonist acknowledges that if he hadn't known about the impending apocalypse, he might have panicked too. Resolving to stay calm and determined, he reassures himself that he will find a way to survive and make it out alive. Despite the uncertainty of their situation, he asks if this is truly the end of the world and what they're supposed to do now. A figure named Kum Kum explains, "It's a good question. All 22 players present will be participating in a game where their lives are at stake." This revelation shocks everyone. The Hoyoung, trying to make sense of the situation, asks if they can return to their normal lives once they reach the top of the tower. Kum Kum admitted he didn't know the answer, leaving Lee Ho-young perplexed. He questioned the purpose of climbing the tower if there was no guarantee of returning. Is this a trap, he wondered. Despite Kum Kum's unassuming appearance, Lee Ho-young knew he couldn't defeat a level 55 opponent. Watching cautiously, a panel appeared before him, urging him to help Kum Kum get home. Conflicted, Lee Ho-young pondered the implications of attacking Kum Kum. The rabbit had never harmed him, as the guide had advised. Yet, the prospect of returning home tempted him. Despite his uncertainty, he ultimately decided to act. Another player stepped forward, boldly declaring his intent to reassure everyone, attributing the tragedy to a mere mistake. Lee Ho-young grappled with the revelation that his guide had deceived him. Amidst the call for assistance, Lee Ho-young was stunned by the sudden activation of his Sage status window, revealing 2 triggers: the ability to view other status windows and an attempt to dissuade him. Resolute, Lee Ho-young asserted his plan. As the confrontation unfolded between Lee Ho-young and Kum Kum, Lee Ho-young sensed something amiss. Then a yellow-haired girl tries to warn him, stating someone passed away, trying to challenge him, but he reassured her and the group that he had a plan. Kum Kum's mention of only 24 players raised suspicions. Promising an exciting outcome, the tension in the air mounted as Lee Ho-young engaged Kum Kum in combat, wielding his sword against Kum Kum's deadly punches. However, amidst the clash, Lee Ho-young sensed something peculiar in Kum Kum's words. Despite there being 25 people, Kum Kum mentioned the wrong number of players. Lee Ho-young deduced the reason there were actually only 24 individuals present. The 25th was a hologram created by Kum Kum. Despite this deception, Lee Ho-young proved to be a skilled fighter, impressing Kum Kum with his abilities. As the battle progressed, Kum Kum's HP reached 0, revealing that he wasn't his true form but merely a hologram. The hologram vanished upon sustaining damage, leaving behind a message urging those with the courage to face the challenges ahead. He states he deducted it was a hologram by noticing Chae Yi-seol, the yellow-haired girl's clothes which should have blood on them, which he made up on the spot. Kim Seong remarked that the stat pill would be wasted on Lee Ho-young, implying that his low level suggested he was either incredibly weak or had simply run away from combat during the tutorial. Lee Ho-young, however, remained determined, ready to face whatever came next in this deadly game. Kim Seong offered Lee the chance to yield, ostensibly for the greater good. Internally, Lee Ho-young questioned Kim Seong's audacity, wondering if he was serious. When Lee asserted that yielding wasn't his style, Kim Seong accused him of greed and mocked his low level. Despite Kim Seong's taunts, Lee chose to ignore him. Using his points, Lee knew there were 3 major avenues for utilizing gold purchasing items, leveling up skills, or enhancing stats. Lee decided to prioritize balancing his stats, focusing on increasing his strength, stamina, and agility to a baseline of 20 each. After allocating his gold, Lee changed into a new gym uniform. Meanwhile, Kim Seong expressed frustration over the cost of leveling up skills and suggested that Lee focus on this aspect as well. Unfazed by Kim Seong's remarks, Lee remained focused on his plans. Chae Yiseol asks assistance to Lee regarding which she should upgrade, then he asks why is she asking him, that she replies she thought he was brave then. To make sure she speaks the truth, he asks her how much gold she has. Then she replies 800, which was exactly as shown by Sage's status window. Then he advised her to upgrade stamina. Then Chae Yiseol expressed her thanks to Lee for his guidance as they prepared for the upcoming mission. Soon after, an announcement was made regarding the formation of 3-man parties for the first floor mission. Players without a party would be randomly assigned to one, with 30 minutes provided. Lee began to contemplate his options for the upcoming challenge. Following Lee and Chae Yiseol, Kim Seong found himself left out as the remaining players formed their parties. Despite the setback, he remained determined to overcome the challenges ahead. As the announcement declared the end of the 30-minute preparation time and the commencement of the first floor mission, Lee found himself filled with frustration at being paired with someone he considered inferior, like Kim Seong. Reflecting on his mission, he remained determined to prove himself and emerge victorious alongside his unlikely teammate. The panel revealed their mission: annihilate the Kobold tribe within a 12-hour time limit. Tensions rose within the party as Kim Seong asserted his intention to eliminate the Kobold tribe single-handedly and warned Lee not to interfere. Lee, recognizing the importance of teamwork, agreed to follow Kim Seong's lead for the time being, silently resolving to assess the situation as they proceeded. Kim Seong interjected, questioning Lee's decision at their current level, acknowledging the dangerous nature of their surroundings. Kim Seong and Lee agreed on the need for caution as they ventured deeper into the Tower of the End. With determination and caution, the party prepared to confront the challenges ahead. As the kobold appeared, its formidable strength took Lee and the others by surprise. Lee immediately suggested assessing the surroundings for any additional threats, while Kim moved to engage the enemy while Chae Yiseol was healing him in the meantime. Lee noticed that the kobold only attacked when provoked and realized that Kim Seong's earlier actions may have needlessly antagonized them. However, he saw a silver lining in the situation. They now had the opportunity to capture a few kobold for research purposes. Amid the fight, Kim Seong unlocked a new skill, Stone Fist Level 1, demonstrating his growing prowess. Suddenly, another kobold appeared, signaling trouble for Kim Seong and adding to the urgency of their situation. While Kim is under attack, Chae Yiseol, being a healer, tries to help him but is thrown back by the kobold's strength. Then Lee enters the scene after examining the situation. He attacks kobolds with a sword and cuts a poison apple to finish it off. With the odds stacked against them, Lee and his team realized the kobold might be vulnerable to poison. Acting on this insight, he summoned a poison apple from his inventory, effectively using it to defeat the kobold. After saving Chae Yiseol from imminent danger, Lee checked on her to ensure she was unharmed. Yiseol expressed her gratitude for his timely intervention, acknowledging the potential danger they narrowly avoided due to Lee's swift action. With the immediate threat neutralized, Lee and Yiseol regrouped, preparing to face whatever challenges lay ahead in their mission. Overwhelmed by the kobold, Lee and Yiseol, however, efficiently eliminated the kobold using poison apples. Lee saved Kim Seong from being overwhelmed by the monsters, reminding him of his earlier remarks about riding on someone else's coattails. Then Kim apologizes, calling him Big Brother. With their combined efforts, they complete the mission to annihilate the kobold tribe, ready for the next challenge in this perilous game. The mission was finally over. Lee Ho-young, Seong, Yiseol, and their team emerged from the portal, a wave of relief washing over them. Seong, despite their success, couldn't help but cringe as he remembered bowing his head to Lee, a mere level 2, while he himself was level 8. "It's over for me if this leaks," he muttered, "but I'm a man of my word, so I won't go back on it." Yiseol, always perceptive, pointed out, "Nobody else is around." Ho-young added, "We cleared it faster because we got lucky and found the kobold's weakness." "It wasn't just lucky," Yiseol said. "Your observational skills helped us a lot." Ho-young, feeling modest, replied, "It was thanks to your support." thinking it's all because of the sage window. He thinks sometimes I feel like a fraud. Just then, other teams began to emerge from their portals. Ho-young noticed one particular group. That's Kim Jun-song's party, he said. They must have found the apples too. I wonder if the other teams will make it back. Another group stumbled out, but only 2 of them remained. One girl fell to the floor, sobbing. Where's the third? Someone asked. Through her tears, she cried. It's just the 2 of us. The voice of the tower boomed. The first mission has been completed by all parties. Yeseol protested. Wait. There are still people missing, the voice replied. 6 parties have returned. 8 people failed to return, Ho-young grimaced. If 8 died from this, how many more will perish before we reach the top? Calculations for the mission's rewards were announced. Those who survived and completed the mission received 1,000 gold each. Ho-young, having earned 2,000 gold from both bonuses, thought it was modest compared to the tutorial, but decided to save his gold nonetheless. Someone inquired, who got first place? Ho-young was about to reveal it, but Seong, brimming with pride, interrupted. It was us, though. It did all the hard work, he announced excitedly. The reaction was mixed. Some people giving Seong odd looks, thinking they managed to get first place with a level 1 player with them. Are you mad? Seong asked, noticing the disbelief. Ho-young, grateful for the distraction, muttered, I'm just glad the attention is off me. Whispers started circulating. A level 2 got first place? He must have been carried. Yeseol tried to defend him, but Ho-young stopped her. They won't listen anyway. I'll just have to show them. Kim Jun-song clapped his hands, calling for attention. Everyone, calm down. We need to focus on our survival. Junho agreed. That's right, we need to stay positive and work together. Suddenly, a light formed on one of the wall torches, quickly turning purple and red, illuminating the entire room. Warnings began to flood their notifications. Panic spread as the tower announced that the survival rate for the first level was below average. A penalty mission was being put into place, a death mission. Ho-young, curious, read the message. Choose one candidate. The player with the most votes will carry out the mission. If you don't vote, you'll vote for yourself. The chosen one will die. Panic ensued. People looked around, trying to decide who to sacrifice. Yeseol, thinking quickly, suggested, if we all vote for ourselves, nobody will be sent out. A man asked, what if we all die then? As time ticked down, a woman pointed at Ho-young. He has 1 vote already. Junho, feeling guilty, apologized. We need to choose. Ho-young expected it, but was still taken aback. I don't want to die, he admitted. Yeseol tried to convince the others again, but Ho-young reassured her, it's fine. They won't listen anyway, and he thinks to himself he won't be trusting them. The votes above Ho-young's head began to increase. His low level made him the obvious target. Yeseol reprimanded the others, but it was futile. Seong grinningly, with a thumbs down, said, sorry man, making his votes to 10, then the timer ends. The portal to the death mission began to open. A giant red gate appeared, and some people started to feel regret. Yeseol covered her mouth, crying. Seong, laughing, thinks, problem solved, now I will be the main character. Ho-young, now their sacrificial lamb, saw faces of guilt and relief around him. He had no choice but to step into the portal. The guide's voice reassured him, you'll get a satisfactory reward with a mixture of fear and excitement. Ho-young walked into the portal, ready for whatever awaited him. The flames in the room flickered back to their normal state as the tension slowly lifted. Conversations buzzed around the group about their recent decisions and the fate of their companions. Kim Jun-song Seong, with a hint of worry in his eyes, turned to Yeseol. Are you okay? He asked, his voice soft but laden with regret. It feels awful. We were supposed to be a team. Kim Seong scoffed, his expression hardening. Regretful? Give me a break. He got what he deserved. Jun-song looked puzzled. What do you mean? Seong's eyes narrowed. You could tell by the levels alone. Ho-young was just leeching off us. He didn't pull his weight. Yeseol's eyes flashed with anger. What are you talking about? Ho-young was the one who carried us through most of the mission. Nah, Seong replied dismissively. He just swooped in for the final hit on the kobold after we did all the work. How delusional can you be? Yeseol shot back. He saved your sorry ass more times than I can count. Seong rolled his eyes, recalling how Ho-young effortlessly took down enemies. He pondered whether Ho-young had some hidden skill to mask his true power. But even with his doubts, he hoped Ho-young would make it back. I hope he's as good as you say, Jun-song muttered. I want him to return alive. Yeseol wiped away her tears, recalling Ho-young's encouraging words. He will. I believe in him. Junsong managed a small smile. Yeah, he'll come back. I'm sure of it. Inside the death mission, Ho-young found himself at a foreboding kobold camp. The atmosphere was thick with menace. He had voted for himself, feeling confident, but knew he'd need a word with Seong later. The mission objective appeared: kill the enraged chieftain and his hunting group. Ho-young's eyes locked on the massive, red-skinned kobold leader, a level 12 monster that let out an earth-shaking roar. The guide's voice rang in his mind. The chieftain is weak to poison. Like the rest, Ho-young crushed a poisonous apple, letting its juice drip onto his blade. A level 12, this is going to be a nightmare. If anyone else were here, they'd be dead for sure. A kobold lunged at him, but he dodged the spear with ease, slicing through 3 of the creatures in one swift motion. All right, side mobs are down. Now for the big guy charging at the chieftain. Ho-young's sword clashed with the beast's. The kobold leader skillfully minimized the impact by pulling back at the right moment. Ho-young noted the chieftain's combat prowess, his mind racing. To his surprise, the chieftain turned and bolted. Ho-young gave chase, only to land a cut on its backside. The beast paused under the full moon, its eyes glowing with a new, terrifying intensity. In an instant, it slashed at Ho-young, leaving a deep gash on his chest. Back at the base, Seong spoke dismissively. We can't do anything for someone who's dead. I'll carry us through the tower. Yeseol ignored him, praying for Ho-young's safety. Seong scoffed. He's obviously dead. Why bother have a conscience for once? Yeseol snapped. What if he comes back? Their argument was interrupted by a sudden portal. Yeseol's heart leapt as she saw Ho-young step through, wounded but alive. Junsong, overwhelmed with relief, cheered as Ho-young's injuries began to heal. Meanwhile, in the mission, Ho-young remembered the guide's warning about the chieftain's red eyes. As the beast charged, its health ticking down, Ho-young knew he had 1 shot left. The chieftain thrust its sword at him. He dodged, letting it pierce a tree. That could have been me, Ho-young muttered, a cold sweat dripping down his face. He realized he'd been using his sword wrong. Inspired by the chieftain's tactic, he decided to use its own momentum against it using stabbing. As the chieftain leapt at him, Ho-young steadied his blade, thrusting it forward. The beast's weight and speed drove the sword through its body, ending the battle. Flashback over, Yeseol ran to Ho-young, but Seong stepped in, sending her sprawling. Confused, she watched as Seong nervously hugged Ho-young. I knew you'd make it back, big bro, Seong exclaimed, sweat trickling down his face. This guy's goofy, but I like it, Ho-young thought, bewildered. What the hell is going on? Ho-young wondered aloud. Seong laughed heartily. Of course, a lowly mission couldn't stop the strongest in the universe. Hearing that response while he also betrayed him, Ho-young just wanted to punch him. Ho-young barely had a moment to catch his breath when a voice rang out. Did you really clear it? A man approached, eyes narrowing suspiciously. He checked Ho-young's level and frowned. How are you still only level 2 if you cleared it? The crowd began to murmur, the skepticism spreading like wildfire. Ho-young sighed, recalling how people had always doubted him, even back in school when they accused him of cheating just because of his good grades. Weirdos, he thought. Someone in the back snickered. Maybe he just hid away and waited for it to finish like he did in the tutorial. Ho-young clenched his fists. He knew people's prejudices wouldn't change easily, but this was getting out of hand. Before he could speak, Yeseol stepped forward, her voice strong and clear. Enough. Stop running your mouths. He survived the mission, didn't he? Hyung felt a wave of gratitude towards Yeseol. Seong stepped up beside her, puffing out his chest. Big sis is right. Instead of celebrating Ho-young's return, you're all just ruining the mood. My big bro here, the strongest in the world, deserves better. Ho-young couldn't help but think Seong was nuts, but his antics were oddly comforting. Still, Ho-young knew he needed to show them something convincing. I need to show you all something. The scene jumped forward to Ho-young revealing the boss's blade, a rare rank weapon with 15% increased attack power. He explained he managed to defeat the kobold's leader by using poisonous apples. The group gasped. That's cheating, someone exclaimed. Junsong, eyes wide with surprise, said, I can't believe you had a poisonous apple with you. That item is more valuable than experience, Ho-young smirked. Survival, huh? You all seem to have forgotten that you voted for me to die. The atmosphere grew tense. Faces froze, and Yeseol's worry deepened. Junho struggled but eventually spoke up. He's right, I justified it as necessary, but it was pure selfishness. Voting for the lowest level was like silently targeting him. Junho bowed deeply. I'm truly sorry, but I'm glad you returned. Ho-young saw the sincerity in Junho's tears, but a woman scoffed. Why go so far? He came back, didn't he? Junho turned on her, furious. How dare you, Seo Injen? Don't you feel any guilt? She crossed her arms. Not for you to say when you voted for him first. Ho-young raised his hand to calm them. I didn't bring this up to reprimand you. It's to stop it from happening again. The tower is trying to divide us, create distrust, and lead us to ruin. The group listened, the weight of Ho-young's words sinking in. Returning from the death mission is an opportunity, he continued. We can defy the tower's intentions. Junsong, now hopeful, asked, what's your plan for the future? Ho-young looked up confidently. We'll find ways to ensure the most people survive and keep climbing the tower together. We'll get our old lives back. The group's spirits lifted. He's right, someone said. We can do this, Yeseol chimed in. We should all group together. Junho looked at Ho-young with newfound respect. I shouldn't have judged you. Suddenly, Kumkum appeared, looking grim. Unfortunate news. The next mission is a survival game. They were all shocked. Shouldn't you be at home? Kumkum nodded. Yes, but this mission is a battle royale among us. It's at a lower level, so we can catch up. He explained the rules. There will be 16 players and 16 doppelgangers. The goal is to slay all the doppelgangers who have the same stats and memories as us. No rewards for slaying doppelgangers, but slaying a player grants stats and gold. The group was shocked. You're just asking us to slay each other. Kumkum's expression hardened. Every 30 minutes without a slay, we'll be summoned to the lobby and face a disaster. A circle with a purple aura appeared in the room, a giant hand emerging from it. Ho-young's heart pounded as the hand smashed down where he stood. How am I supposed to fight this? He shouted, narrowly dodging. The hand struck where the group had been standing, but they all managed to avoid it. Ho-young managed to push Junho aside and slipped out of the giant's path just in time. He looked back to see the enormous creature looming over them. This is a disaster, he muttered. The other players began to tremble, fear gripping them tightly. They had barely passed the first floor, and now this? Some were too petrified to move. Hyung knew this was bad. The panic was spreading fast. The giant swung its massive arm toward one of the frightened players, but Ho-young leaped in and pushed them out of the way. The second floor mission hasn't even started yet. What's going on? Kumkum was pretending to be terrified, cowering behind a rock. Ho-young squinted at him, realizing that Kumkum might be putting on a show to lock everyone into the mission. Despite the danger, a smile crept onto Ho-young's face. This is just a taste of what's to come, he thought. It can't really harm us, right? But then, the giant smashed the ground again, sending players flying through the air. Junseong fired an arrow and Seong threw a boulder, but the giant effortlessly stopped both. Ho-young's heart sank. He had been wrong. This thing was trying to slay them. Yeseol began healing the injured players, but she looked exhausted. I'm running out of mana, she called out. Ho-young realized someone was going to get seriously hurt if this kept up. Junho pointed out that the giant was coming for round 2. Ho-young took a deep breath. Everyone, stand back. No time to worry about what others think. We need to stop it to save ourselves. He gripped his sword tightly and charged at the giant. As its fist came down, Ho-young let out a roar, using all his strength to stab and pierce through the fist, creating a hole and, to his shock, completely erasing the giant from existence. The players were stunned into silence, and even Ho-young couldn't believe what he had done. They started cheering, but he stared blankly at his sword, wondering if it was truly that powerful. A status window popped up, indicating he would be in an exhausted state for 3 minutes due to using strength beyond his limits. His vision narrowed, and he collapsed to the floor, unconscious. 3 minutes later, Ho-young opened his eyes to see everyone staring at him. His exhaustion had lifted, and the group quickly checked up on him. Junho, tears in his eyes, exclaimed, I'm so touched by how humble you are. Ho-young, still dazed, asked, what happened? Junho began to explain, but Kumkum snapped his fingers. It was sent back. Just a taste of what's to come, he said with a grin. Exciting, right? But remember, with the requirement that someone must be defeated every 30 minutes, The people standing around you might just be the ones to slay you in the end. Fear spread through the group again. Kumkum opened a portal, saying, "My job here is done. See you later," and with that, he disappeared, leaving everyone speechless. Ho-young clenched his teeth. The intentions here are too obvious. We need to be careful. Back in the main room, the players began discussing strategies to find the doppelgangers. Some suggested marking each person, but since the doppelgangers shared their memories, they were out of ideas. Ho-young stood up. "I have a plan," Junsong asked. "What is it?" "During this mission, only I will defeat others. You all gather at the highest place on the floor. If anyone other than me defeats someone, consider that person a doppelganger and take them down." A special forces member named Sang asked skeptically, "Is that your entire plan?" Seo Eunjin spoke up. "You're strong, but you're a low level. Why should we listen to you?" Ho-young calmly replied, "Remember what Kumkum said. There's no reward for defeating a doppelganger, but if a player defeats another player, they gain stats and gold. This means everyone is a threat to one another. This plan stops the tower from playing us against each other." Eunjin scoffed. "How is that the best solution?" Junsong stepped in. "I agree with Ho-young. This is a good call. But how will you differentiate the doppelgangers?" Ho-young smirked. "I have my ways." The second floor mission started, and as Kumkum mentioned, there were 32 members in total. Seong angrily walked through the forest, grumbling about the plan. "This is too reckless, and I hate climbing mountains." He heard footsteps and hid behind a tree, sweating nervously. Ho-young called out, "How does a big guy like you think he can hide behind a tree?" Seong grinned. "It's just big, bro," he said, stepping out, only to be sliced clean in half by Ho-young. Blood splattered, and Ho-young, now soaked, stood firm. "One down," Ho-young muttered, his eyes scanning for the next threat. We flash back to when Ho-young first teleported in. He was staring at a glowing window, a smirk on his face. He had just reached a high enough stat level and sensitivity to receive a skill called Impeccable Senses, which would let him identify doppelgangers. Finally, he reached level 50 and obtained the skill, which would give him detailed information about someone within a certain radius. He had to spend over half of his gold to get it, but it was worth it. "Feels like my whole world has an improved filter of senses," he muttered, marveling at his heightened awareness. He could hear Song in the forest complaining loudly. Ho-young was surprised he could hear him from so far away, but soon caught a foul smell. "That's how I identified doppelgangers," he realized. Back in the present, after slaying Song, a window popped up showing the number of doppelgangers decreasing. It acted like the real thing until the end, he thought. He just hoped the rest of the group was listening to him. Thanks to Junsong agreeing, it seemed like everyone else did as well. But there was no telling if that was true. His face stiffened when he saw a message saying a player had died. How did a player die already? Was it a doppelganger or a player? He couldn't waste time thinking about it and dashed through the forest, determined to find the culprit. He climbed a tree, noting another player had been slain when he took out the doppelganger. Scanning the forest, he sensed something to his left and spotted a doppelganger over a body. "Gotcha," he yelled, flying at full speed toward the doppelganger. It tried to pretend to be human, but Ho-young wasn't fooled. He cut through the doppelganger, reducing their count. He paid his respects to the fallen player but noticed something odd. The doppelganger had a dull longsword, but the wound wasn't from a sword. It was from an arrow. He spotted Junsong with a bow drawn and realized the true threat. "Junsong, are you okay?" he called out. Junsong warned him to stay back. "I don't want to suspect you, but I can't tell who's real anymore." Ho-young pointed at the doppelganger he just slew. "Isn't this proof enough?" Junsong hesitated, but then dropped his bow. "You really are Ho-young," he admitted, collapsing. "Be careful of my doppelganger." Ho-young rushed over, helping him up. "If we stick together, we'll make it," he reassured. Junsong apologized, saying he should have stopped his doppelganger from escaping, but Ho-young comforted him. "It's not your fault. We're all victims here. Focus on escaping the tower." Suddenly, Ho-young sensed something. Yeseol and Junho emerged from the bushes, huffing. "Thank goodness you're alive," Yeseol panted. "We saw players had died." Yeseol went to heal Junsong, but Ho-young stepped between them. "They're doppelgangers." "Step back." Yeseol and Junho instantly shifted into fighting form. Junho charged at Ho-young, looking saddened. "Do you hold a grudge about the death mission?" he asked as they clashed blades. Junsong said he'd handle the other doppelganger. Ho-young wondered why the doppelgangers were revealing themselves so easily, especially if one had Yiseol's memories and knew his strength. She came up from behind, but he dodged her attack, surprised at her boldness. Junho tried to take advantage of the distraction, but Ho-young evaded his sneak attack effortlessly. He flipped through the air, landing gracefully, but an arrow flew straight at his head. It grazed his face, hitting a tree behind him. "That's a pity," a voice said. It was Janong, standing with the doppelgangers. "I thought I'd gotten the checkmate with